today to do my spoiler-free book review for 2001 A Space Odyssey by Arthur C Clarke. It was a classic sci-fi that, other than knowing like the very basic, barest of bones about the story, I really didn't know that much. In essence, this book is about mankind discovering a monolith on the moon and kind of what it pushes them to do in response, I guess. It leads to a deep space expedition, and as many things in classic sci-fi do, this trip goes a little wrong. What I knew going in, the brief synopsis I gave you is what I got after reading the back of the book, and so I was, needless to say, intrigued. And now I will kind of jump into my likes and dislikes here to let you know a little bit more of what I thought about this. With how the book was set up, it was set almost in 3 different acts, and the first act, the kind of introductory act, I loved. It gave you a little bit of an idea of what the monolith was. I personally found that part, while it was a bit slow, it was incredibly intriguing, and I wish the rest of the book had stayed that intriguing for me. One of the other things I really liked about this book was when a decision was made, a lot of the times the logic behind the decision was discussed, which I personally really appreciated, because even if I didn't necessarily agree with what was going on, I understood the rationale leading up to the decision, which made me connect with the characters in the story a little bit more. And my third like is just the overall concept of the book. I do really enjoy books with this plot. Typically, I enjoy them anyways. And as I kind of saw it unfolding, I was excited because it seemed to have the bones of a story I'd really like. However, moving on to the dislikes here, you'll see that it wasn't quite what I hoped based on the bones of the story. The pacing was weird, and I felt like it affected a lot of other things like timeline jumps, scene jumps, because it would be so different from what you were just leaving that there was very little connection for me. It made it very hard to transition from chapter to chapter. My second negative is that in new situations, I felt like you were just dumped into it. And while I had said earlier I liked that the logic behind a lot of decisions were explained, they were. However, if you were just put in a new situation, you weren't given details about the decision that led to that situation. You were just given details about decisions made in that situation. And so every time something new was introduced, I was always confused and felt like I was missing something, like I should have been reading between the lines a little bit more. It is not often that I feel like I've missed something in a story, or that I feel like I'm too stupid to understand the story. And even here, I don't know that it's not necessarily that I felt too stupid for it. It's that I felt like I wasn't being given all the information to adequately enjoy the scene being presented to me. And then my third negative is one that I'm a little sad about, just because I really enjoy stories with good characters, and this story, unfortunately, just had pretty bland characters. None of them really stuck out. I actually had to go back and skim a section of the book because I couldn't remember which of the 2 scientists they had been talking about, because I got their names confused for so long. Because reading them on paper, they weren't distinct. And so that, while it seems pretty minor, it did pull me out of my enjoyment a bit, because I do enjoy good character work, and I just really felt like the focus was more on what the end goal of the story was, and not even necessarily what was getting us there, including the characters. Which leads me into my character section. As I mentioned, there were a few times where I had to skim to kind of remind myself who had done what. Within that, the characters just were pretty generic and bland for me. I didn't really connect with any of them. None of them were, like, amazing superstars, in my opinion, even though they were supposed to be in some cases. There were two that stood out to me, and they are characters that really didn't have a lot to do... Well, one character really didn't have a lot to do with the story that pertained to what really was being written about. And the other one, I think a lot of people like that you can dislike him. And that's really all I have to say. There really wasn't much to say about the characters here. There's not a lot to go into. And so with that, I'm just going to jump into a wrap-up here. And I actually really had a hard time with this because there were parts of this book I really liked. Part of it being that it was short. But there were parts that I just really didn't enjoy. If this had been any longer, I don't know that I would have gotten through it. And so I ended up giving this a 2.5 out of 5. It wasn't, like, it didn't blow my mind with how amazing it is, like I saw it do with a lot of other people, but I also didn't hate it. It was really just middle of the road. Even my dislikes were nothing major or things that would make me put other books down for reading them. The concepts presented and the logic for decisions were really interesting to me, but the execution of the story overall was just a miss. And this is because of the pacing, the choppy time jumps that were caused by the pacing, the new situations feeling like you were being left out of a lot of information that was necessary. And just the characters were overall pretty meh. I think that there are a lot of people out there that would really, really like this book. Like I said, for me, the bones of a story I would enjoy were there. It just didn't come together in a way that I enjoyed. The writing style just really wasn't for me, is what it comes down to. And with that, I will leave you guys here, and I will see you in the spoiler review for this book. Peace.